Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dana and I am so excited to be sharing my love of makeup and beauty with you all. Today I have the much anticipated eyeshadow palette declutter. This is my entire eyeshadow palette collection here, just stacked into some messy piles. So I am excited to kind of go through, show you my collection, and declutter some things. Just as a forewarning, eyeshadow palettes are my favorite makeup item by a large margin. I have far too many, but I also have a really hard time decluttering them because I do love them so much. So I don't know how exciting this declutter is going to be, but at least it will give you a nice little glimpse into my collection, what I have, what I'm using, what I love, and hopefully it'll give you a bit of an idea of what you'd like to see me talk about on my channel. So I wanted to start here with a little bit of, the elephant in the room and getting that out of the way. I do have products in my collection right now from brands I no longer support and I choose not to buy from anymore. But that being said, I don't personally believe you should donate or throw out or declutter makeup as soon as you no longer support a brand, unless you personally really want to. So I do have products in my collection that I no longer support these brands, and I don't show them on my channel except for, obviously right now I am going to show them. But normally I don't show them, so just know they are here. I am getting rid of some of them. I am going to keep some of them, but I don't use them on my channel, so you won't see them again. The first one here, I have Alien from Jeffree Star. It just looks like that. This is the only Jeffree Star palette I will be keeping, and that is just purely because it is relatively unique to my collection and I do get a lot of use out of it. But like I said, it's not going to show up on my channel again, so that's the last time you'll see that. This is Jeffree Star and Shane Dawson Conspiracy. I really liked this palette when it came out. There's a couple shades in here that I really do like, so I'm actually probably going to deconstruct this one and try and sort of keep the shades that I really like in it, but as a whole, I'm not going to keep this palette. I just don't think it's unique or interesting enough to warrant having it around, and this packaging drives me crazy. Like, where can you store that? It's not even remotely flat. It doesn't fit anywhere. It's a pain in the butt. This one is the Bloodlust palette, again from Jeffree Star. Sorry, it's really dirty. It's velvet on the outside, so it collects dust like crazy. This is what the inside of the palette looks like. It's a very pretty, just sort of basic purple palette. I have so many purples in my collection, I really don't need this one, and I am going to pass this on to a friend who would like to try the formula and see if it works for them. So this one will also be leaving my collection. I've personally also chosen to no longer support Ofra as a brand. I only have 3 palettes from Ofra and they are all fairly new to my collection. This is the Life's a Draft palette with Samantha March. Just for clarification, I absolutely still support Samantha March. I have no issue with her, but I no longer am purchasing from Ofra. I am going to keep this, however. I really like this palette and I do think it is a really good quality one. These two I'm having a little more trouble with. This is the Signature palette in Empowered. It is the sort of greeny one. I'm really hoping that's showing up true to color. This is an actual brown, but on my viewfinder it kind of looks pink, so I'm hoping it's showing up right. And then I also have Galaxy, which is this purpley one here. I don't know how to feel about these, honestly. Galaxy is just fine, but it has almost no pigmentation. Like, it's really subtle. Even this really dark color here, it's just not very dark, and I find that I'm not really reaching for like pastel purples very often. So I think this one is going to be decluttered. Empowered is a hard one for me because I do really like greens, but do I really like these greens? I don't know. I am going to put this in a maybe pile that I will reconsider before I move. I'm going to just keep this in the section of like, I maybe want it, but I'm gonna reconsider it before I go if it's worth taking it with me. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into some of the brands that I don't have a problem with currently. That's a little more positive. These are really in no particular order. I don't separate my palettes by brand. I used to separate them by color, but I have too many palettes that fit in my storage section, so I no longer split them up by color, now they're sort of everywhere, so no particular order. This is a Charlotte Tilbury quad. This is the Desert Haze color set. It is all matte. I've talked about this a couple times on my channel so far. I really enjoy this palette for when I want something just super quick, super easy, and looks really like professionally luxe, I guess I would say. I really enjoy this. They're very expensive. I'm not gonna buy another one, but I am gonna keep this one. This is the BH Cosmetics Emerald palette. It is the May birthstone palette. My birthday was the 1st of May, so this is my birthstone. I really enjoy this palette. I do kind of wish it had more greens in it. It technically has 3, but this one comes across a little more gray than green. But overall, I think it is really nice for those like awesome, deep, grungy looks. And like, I think these palettes retail for like $9 US, so there's nothing beats that price. These are really, really good. I am keeping this. This is the Juvia's Place Warrior, the original one. I think it's called the Warrior 1 now. At the time, there was no others. Sorry, it's a little bit dirty. This is just a really awesome basic nude palette, but it's got a really nice variety of depths here. You can go very light to very dark. I really like that it suits my skin tone when I want to go light, which is not something all neutral palettes do because I am so fair, but I do really enjoy this. This was my first Juvia's Place palette, and I am definitely keeping this one. This is the ColourPop Little Ray of Sunshine palette. It is their all matte yellow palette that is inspired by sunflowers. Really hoping that's showing up properly. I absolutely adore this palette. I really like nice yellows, especially for the spring and summer. And I wear a lot of yellow actually when I'm feeling kind of down, when I wake up in a bad mood. Yellow is one of those colors that just really picks me up, so I am definitely going to keep this. I really like this palette. This is the original Alamar Cosmetics Reina del Caribe? I'm so sorry, I do not speak Spanish. I feel really embarrassed there. But this is the original eyeshadow palette that Alamar came out with. I have had all 3 Alamar palettes. I have since decluttered the volume 2 of this, but I do still have this original one. I have no idea what to do with this palette because I absolutely love this palette. And I do reach for it fairly often, and I reach for it especially when it gets hot in the summer. I'm fairly certain this has expired. It is quite old. I've had it for several years now, and it is not performing the way it's supposed to anymore. It's really only this shade here, this deep blue, that is doing that. The rest of them seem to be performing well still, so I'm like, do I keep it if I think it's starting to expire, or do I... This is going in the maybe pile again. I'm so sorry, I'm very indecisive. It's hard for me to get rid of eyeshadows. This is the Natasha Denona Sunrise palette. It is the sort of pinky orangey yellow one. This is one of the older Natasha Denona palettes in my collection. I don't think it's the oldest, but it's one of the older ones. It is also one of the ones I reach for the least, and I'm not sure why. I really like this palette, and all the colors individually work well together. I find if I want like a pink and yellow look, I don't reach for it. I reach for other palettes instead of this. So as sad as this makes me, I am going to pass this along. I have a friend, Jess, who really wants it and has been dying to try it out. So I'm going to pass it along to her so she can get some use out of it and it's not going to waste. This is the Tarte Adelaine Marin palette. I actually have never watched her YouTube channel. I don't know almost anything about her as a person, but I did buy this palette because I loved the colors in it. This palette is actually, it looks really nice right now because I've just cleaned it, but it is actually incredibly beaten up. There's tons of little like scratches and dents in the front, and that's because I traveled with this. This was a palette I took to Europe in 2019 when I was backpacking with a friend. I don't reach for this anymore. And I don't know why. Again, very similar to the Sunrise palette, all of the colors still work fine. They perform well. The blush and the highlighter are very nice. They work well for me, but I just never use it. So I think I am going to let this one go. I'll see if I know someone who might enjoy this more than me, because it is still a good palette, but it's just getting ignored in my collection, and I don't want to have makeup that I'm not using. This is a Lethal Cosmetics Build Your Own palette. I have purchased these 12 shades from their singles collection and just stuck them in here. I don't, off the top of my head, know what these shades are, but I can put that in the description box if that's of interest to you. I really, really enjoy this palette. I love playing around with these shades. I really, really like the selection I chose. Because all of the colors tend to work pretty well together, but as going through by row, you can also get really nice like, sort of quads out of it. I really enjoy the formula. This is my first, these are my first shadows from Lethal, but I'm really, really enjoying them, so I am going to keep this. This is the Alamar Spanglish palette. I got this one in a BoxyCharm. I think I might have gotten the other Alamars in a BoxyCharm as well. I'd have to check. But I really like this one. It does some really beautiful sort of peachy pinky colors. I think it's got some really fantastic tones to it. I really, really like this. I am going to keep it, and I'm going to try and commit to using it more because it is a sort of underrated palette in my collection. Let's do this pile next. This is the Kaleidos Futurism 3. This is Astro Pink. And it just folds out like that. These were the first shadows I tried from Kaleidos, or Kaleidos. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced. I've heard both ways. I really like this. I think this color here, this sort of pinky taupey shimmer is just absolutely insane. That blue is gorgeous. I don't use this palette enough, and I really should use it more, but I am going to keep it because I'm gonna try and commit to using it more. This is the Futurism 1 by Kaleidos. This is Sci-Fi Green. This is what I love in terms of green palettes. It's got some oranges, some golds, some true greens. I love this palette. It is like a grungier, darker version of what I wanted that Ofra Empowered palette to be. I really, really like this one. I am definitely going to keep it. Here we have my ABH Soft Glam palette. I constantly fear that this is going to expire and I'm going to have to get rid of it, but so far it has not expired. It still works exactly the same as it did when I first got it. It still smells great. Well, doesn't really smell like anything, but it still smells fine. It still performs fine. All the colors are still good. So I'm not throwing this out. I do not think it has expired. I absolutely love it. I am very light-handed with my shadows, but this palette is the closest I have ever come to panning. There is a massive big dip in Tempera here and a big dip in Rose Pink. There's also a sizable dip in Sienna. If I were to ever pan a palette, I think this would be it, but I don't tend to pan palettes. I have a lot of them, but this is one of my favorite palettes of all time, so I'm definitely keeping. Urban Decay Naked Heat is a hard one for me because some of the shades in here are expired for sure. These two, Ashes and On Fuego, are really, really dry and crumbly. They don't blend out anymore. They're very patchy and they don't perform like they used to. But most of the rest of the shades perform fine. So I'm not really sure how to feel about this one. Because it's plastic, it's gonna be very hard to to depot if I wanted to do that. So I don't think I'm going to try. I don't know. I might put this one in the maybe pile as well, and if any more shades start acting up before I move, I will probably declutter it, but if it's still all performing fine except for these two, I might keep it. Here we have the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. This is much newer to my collection. It is the pretty golden yellowy one. I really like this one when I'm reaching for like a gold nude palette. It's, you know, more yellow than like Soft Glam, which I go to for like a pinky nude. I like this one a lot. I am going to keep it. This is the KVD Lolita palette. I did buy this just before I decided to no longer support Kat Von D as a person or a brand. Kat Von D is no longer associated with the KVD brand, so I'm no longer against buying from that brand. Which is why I didn't have this in that pile with the Jeffree Star and the Ofra palettes. I don't love this palette anymore. I did really love it, and I've actually saved it from a declutter twice because I remember it so fondly, but I'm looking at it going, I haven't used it since my last declutter. I'm not going to reach for it. I need to just pass. So this is going to get decluttered. Here I have the ABH Norvina Collection Volume 4 Pro, or Pro Volume 4. I don't actually know what the name is of this one. This is the biggest palette in my collection by a sizable margin. I don't tend to use palettes that are this large, and actually I do kind of find this palette overwhelming. But that being said, I love so many shades in here. I have nothing like this neon yellow here. I just think this is awesome. So I am going to keep this, and I'm going to try and use it a little bit more. And I'm also going to try and do like a, I don't know if I'll film it for YouTube, but like a 3 looks, 1 palette kind of challenge to sort of push myself into using it a bit more and combining the colors in new and exciting ways, so I'm not always reaching for the same 2 shades in here. This is the Odin's Eye Alva 2 palette. Just looks like this. It's very bright and fun. I do really like this palette. It is currently, I think it's currently the only really pastel palette I have in my collection. The only sort of downside I have with this palette is it doesn't look like it will be pastel until you try and put it on the eyes and realize it is. It's a lot lighter than it looks like it's going to be from the pans. And I think a lot of people with deeper skin tones than me would really struggle using this palette because it is so pastel. That being said, I love it. I don't mind at all. My skin tone is very light, so I can use them, and pastels, and the pastels in here do look really nice on me. So I am going to keep this, but yeah, I thought this would be a little bolder than it is. This is the BH Cosmetics Smitten in Switzerland palette. I wasn't sure I was going to keep this. When I got it, I was like, oh, it's not as colorful as I thought it was from some of the promo pictures, and I just wasn't sure that I was going to like it, but I actually really do. I like that there's, you know, this green here, mountain, and there's Matterhorn, this like matte sort of orangey yellow. I like that there's some lighter shimmers and some deeper shimmers. I am really enjoying this palette, but I did think it was a little brighter based on the promo photos I saw on Instagram, but that's probably because they have a bit of a filter on them and that alters the color a bit. This is the Huda Naughty Nude palette. This is the palette that made me really sort of fall back in love with Huda. I hadn't used Huda for a very long time because I did not like the original Mini Obsessions palettes. But I do really like this one. Even the shade down here, Slippery, which is the gross, weird, like gel texture, I don't mind it. I can make it work, it's fine. I love the rest of the palette though, so I am gonna keep this.